Islam. In Islamic belief, the afterlife has very structured and meaningful stages. After the trumpet is blown by Angel Israfil, all humans will be resurrected from their graves in an event called Yaumul Ba'ats. This resurrection process is described in the Quran Surah Yasin, verses 51 to 53, where the shattered bones will be reassembled and the soul will be united with the body. After the resurrection, humans will be gathered in the Mahshar field, a place that is described as very large, but will be filled with all humanity since Prophet Adam until the end of time. Interestingly, the conditions on Mahshar are described in the Hadith as extremely hot, with the sun very close by. Modern scientists interpret this to be related to the expansion of the sun in its final phase of life. The process of calculation of deeds, called hisab, then begins in great detail. Every deed, no matter how small, will be calculated by a very precise system. The Quran mentions in Surah Az-Zalzala, verses 7 to 8, that even deeds as small as a zara seed, atom, will be accounted for. Modern scientists see this as a spiritual accounting system that is far more precise than modern computer systems. After the accounting, humans will pass through the Shirat, a bridge described as thinner than a hair and sharper than a sword. Interestingly, in Islamic tradition, the speed at which a person passes through the Shirat is directly proportional to the quality of their deeds in the world, a metaphor that shows how our deeds in the world affect the speed towards salvation. Eventually, humans will enter their eternal place, heaven, Jannah, or hell, Jahannam. Heaven is described as having 7 levels, with paradise being the highest level. Each level has unique characteristics and a different reward system, showing that even in the afterlife there are hierarchies and levels based on the quality of one's faith and charity. Christianity. Christians have a view of the afterlife, often referred to as the Day of Judgment, that has a deep and complex theological foundation. According to the book of Revelation, this event begins with the second coming of Jesus Christ, parousia. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 16 to 17, it is explained that this coming will be signaled by a loud cry, the voice of the archangel, and the trumpet of God. Theologians interpret this as a cosmic event that will be visible worldwide. In contrast to the localized first coming of Christ in Bethlehem, the resurrection of the dead occurs in 2 interesting stages. First, resurrection for believers, and second, resurrection for judgment. This resurrection body, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 35 to 44, will be a spiritual body, a concept that invites deep theological discussion. The final judgment is described in Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 to 15, as proceeding before the great white throne. Everyone will be judged according to what is written in the books, according to their deeds. Biblical scholars see this as a metaphor for a perfect system of divine justice in which no deed is left unrecorded. The end result is the creation of new heavens and a new earth. Revelation chapter 21, verse 1. The holy city, New Jerusalem, descends from heaven as the eternal dwelling place of believers. Interestingly, in Revelation chapter 21, verse 16, the city is described as cube-shaped with the same size on all sides. 12,000 stadia, about 2,200 kilometers. Some modern theologians interpret these dimensions as symbolic, showing the perfection and completeness of God's new creation. In this place, according to Revelation chapter 21, verse 4, there will be no more death, nor mourning, nor crying, nor sorrow. This concept describes a fundamental transformation of reality as we know it, where the laws of physics and the material limitations of the present world no longer apply. Hinduism. In Hindu philosophy, the concept of life after the destruction of the universe is closely linked to cosmic cycles called yugas and kalpas. Each kalpa consists of 1,000 mahayuga, and each mahayuga consists of 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. According to traditional calculations, 1 Brahma day, kalpa, is equivalent to 4.32 billion human years, a timescale surprisingly similar to scientific estimates of the age of the Earth. When pralaya occurs, the entire universe undergoes dissolution or melting back into Brahman, the ultimate reality. This process is described in the Purana texts as the sleep of Brahma, where all physical manifestations are absorbed back into a state of potential. Interestingly, this concept has parallels with modern physics, theories of entropy, and the possibility of a big crunch as the end of the expansion of the universe. After Pralaya, there is a period of new creation called Srishti. In this phase, souls, Atman, who have not attained moksha, will return in a new cycle of reincarnation. This process is described in the Upanishads as depending on the karma and samskara, mental impressions, that have accumulated. The ancient rishis describe this as like seeds that remain dormant during the winter, waiting for the right conditions to sprout again. Souls who have attained moksha, liberation, during the previous cycle will remain in a state of union with Brahman. The Bhagavad Gita describes this condition as Brahma Nirvana, the highest state of consciousness that transcends the cycle of birth and death. Vedanta philosophers such as Adi Shankara explain that in this state, individuality is dissolved in universal consciousness, like a drop of water merging with the ocean. A unique aspect of the Hindu view is that this creation-destruction cycle has no absolute beginning and end. This reflects a cyclical understanding of time, in contrast to the linear view common in Abrahamic traditions. Some modern scientists see similarities between this concept and the cyclical universe theory or oscillating universe model in cosmology. Buddhism. In Buddhist cosmology, the concept of the end of time and the rebirth of the universe has an interesting complexity. According to Buddhism, the universe undergoes cycles of destruction and rebirth called kalpas. Each kalpa consists of 4 phases: formation, vivarta kalpa; existence, vivarta staya kalpa; destruction, samvarta kalpa; and emptiness, samvarta staya kalpa. Interestingly, the duration of one kalpa is described in the classic analogy: the time it takes to scrape off a 16 by 16 by 16 mile mountain of rock by touching it with a silk cloth once every 100 years. When the end of the kalpa comes, Buddhism describes 3 types of destruction: by fire, consuming up to the first jhana realm; by water, up to the second jhana; and by wind, up to the third jhana. Modern scholars see similarities between these descriptions and astrophysical theories about the possible end of the universe through the big crunch, big freeze, or big rip. What distinguishes the Buddhist view from other traditions is its focus on individualized consciousness. Those who have attained nirvana before the destruction of the kalpa have transcended the cycle of rebirth, samsara. Nirvana is not a place or state, but rather the total extinction of desire, aversion, and ignorance, the 3 roots of suffering. The Abhidhamma explains this as a state beyond all concepts and duality. For those who have not attained nirvana, their consciousness will be reborn in realms corresponding to their karma in a new kalpa. This process is explained in Dependent Origination Paticca Samuppada, a doctrine that shows how consciousness and material existence are interdependent and influential. Contemporary Buddhist philosophers often relate this to quantum physics theories of consciousness and reality. One unique aspect of the Buddhist view is that all phenomena, including the destruction and remaking of the universe, are seen as manifestations of 3 characteristics of existence: impermanence, anicca, unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and permanent selflessness, anatta. A deep understanding of these is considered the key to liberation from the cycle of rebirth. Judaism. Judaism has the concept of Olam Haba, which is a very complex understanding of the Messianic era and life after resurrection. According to Maimonides, one of the greatest medieval Jewish philosophers, Olam Haba consists of 2 distinct phases: the Messianic era, Yamat HaMashiach, and the resurrection of the dead, Tehiyat HaMetim. The Messianic era begins with the arrival of the Messiah, Mashiach, a leader descended from King David who will restore the kingdom of Israel and bring universal peace. The Talmud describes this period as one in which swords will be forged into plowshares, Yeshayahu chapter 2, verse 4, a powerful metaphor for the transformation from conflict to harmony. Interestingly, Jewish tradition emphasized that the Messiah will come through natural processes, not through supernatural miracles, a view that distinguishes it from other messianic traditions. The resurrection of the dead is described in ancient texts such as the book of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 2, and further explained in the Talmud. This process is described as beginning in Jerusalem and spreading throughout the world. The rabbis explain that the resurrection body will have unique characteristics, free from physical needs yet retaining an individual identity, a concept that anticipates modern debates about personal identity and consciousness. A particularly interesting aspect of Olam Haba is the concept of Tikkun Olam, repair of the world, which teaches that every human action in this world contributes to the perfection of creation. The Kabbalists explain this through the metaphor of a broken vessel. Our world is a fragment of a more perfect reality, and man's task is to put these fragments back together through good deeds and observance of God's laws. In Olam Haba, knowledge of God will be universal like the waters that cover the sea. Yeshayahu chapter 11 verse 9. Modern scholars interpret this as a condition in which spiritual truths will become as obvious as empirical truths, removing the dichotomy between faith and knowledge. Zoroastrianism. In Zoroastrianism, the concept of the end times is known as frashokareti, frashgird in Pahlavi, which literally means making perfect or renewal. This was a highly sophisticated concept for its time, combining an understanding of cosmic battle with a universal transformation towards perfection. According to the Bundahishn scriptures, Frashokareti begins with the final battle between the forces of good led by Ahura Mazda, Lord Wisdom, and the forces of evil led by Angra Mainyu, Spirit of Destruction. Interestingly, this battle is not only physical but also moral and spiritual, involving the whole of creation in the struggle towards perfection. The process of universal purification takes place through molten metal melting from the mountains due to cosmic heat. In the Zand-i Vamanyasht, it is explained that this molten metal will flow like a river across the earth, purifying everything in its path. Modern scholars see similarities between this description and geological theories of mass volcanic activity and planetary transformation. A very unique aspect of Frashokareti is the concept of universal salvation. In contrast to many other eschatological traditions, Zoroastrianism teaches that even souls residing in hell, the so-called house of lies, will be purified and saved. This process is described in Denkert's text as a gradual transformation in which evil gradually loses its power until it finally vanishes completely. After purification, the universe will reach a state called Ristakis, total resurrection and renewal. In this state, humans will live in perfect bodies, Tani Pasin, free from suffering and death. Time will become eternal, Zaman-i Akanarag, and the entire creation will reach a state of perfect harmony known as Kvarshad Anagar Raushni, or endless light. Norse mythology. In Norse mythology, Ragnarok is a series of apocalyptic events that mark the end and renewal of the world. The concept is explained in detail in the prose Edda and Poetic Edda, ancient Icelandic texts written in the 13th century. Ragnarok begins with Fimbulvetur, a winter that lasts 3 consecutive years with no summer in between. This phenomenon causes moral and social breakdown among humans, described in the text as axe age, sword age, shields are cleft. Modern scholars see this as a reflection of Norse experience with the periods of extreme climate that once plagued Scandinavia. The final battle involves an epic confrontation between the Aesir gods and their enemies. Odin faces off against Fenrir, the giant wolf, Thor against Jörmungandr, the serpent of the world, and Tyr against Garm, the guard dog of Helheim. Interestingly, in this mythology, even the gods are not immune from death. Quite a unique concept among ancient mythologies. After a devastating battle, the world sinks into the ocean and is burned by Surtur, the fire giant from Muspelheim. However, unlike some other apocalyptic mythologies, this destruction was not a total end. From the ashes of destruction, a new, greener, and more fertile world emerged. Lif and Lif Thrasir, a pair of humans who survived by hiding in the Hodmimi's forest, would restart the human race. Young gods such as Baldur, who returned from the dead, and Hödur would lead this new era, along with Thor's sons Modi and Magni, who inherited their father's hammer Mjolnir. The symbolism of this regeneration reflects Norse society's cyclical understanding of life and death, as well as the belief that destruction is a prerequisite for renewal. What makes this concept even more interesting is how it reflects the Norse worldview, the idea that even the gods are subject to fate, but that courage in the face of inevitable destruction is the highest form of nobility. Mayan cosmology. Mayan cosmology had a very sophisticated understanding of time and universal cycles. They used a complex calendar system, most notably the long count calendar, which measured time in large cycles of about 5,126 years. Each end of the cycle was seen as a moment of massive transformation in human consciousness and reality. The ancient Mayan astronomers believed that the universe had gone through 4 previous cycles of creation, and we are now in the 5th. Each previous cycle ended in a different way: flood, wind, fire, and darkness, as recorded in the Popol Vuh, the Mayan holy book. Amazingly, they were able to perform highly accurate astronomical calculations to predict the movements of celestial bodies thousands of years into the future. The transition between cycles in Mayan understanding was not simply about physical destruction, but rather a transformation of consciousness. They believed that the end of each cycle carried the potential for a quantum leap in human spiritual evolution. Modern scholars see similarities between this concept and contemporary theories about the evolution of collective consciousness and global paradigm shifts. Mayan priests used sophisticated observatories to align their sacred cycles with real astronomical phenomena. The Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, for example, was designed so that on the equinoxes, light and shadow formed the illusion of a snake slithering down the pyramid steps, a dramatic demonstration of their understanding of the relationship between cosmic and terrestrial cycles. In the Mayan view, transitional periods between cycles are characterized by an intensification of time where change occurs at an ever-increasing pace. They illustrate this through the concept of time compression. The idea that the closer we get to the transition point, the more significant events occur in ever shorter intervals of time. Interestingly, this concept has parallels with modern theories of accelerated technological and social change. Yoruba. Yoruba beliefs suggest that the concept of life after the destruction of the world is closely linked to their understanding of Orun, the spiritual realm, and I, the physical world. According to this tradition, these two realms are not separate but intertwined in a complex fabric of reality, like two sides of the same coin. Yoruba Babalawo, spiritual leaders, teach that when the physical world experiences destruction, spirits will return to Orun, but in a different way from ordinary death. In Yoruba belief, Orun has various levels or different chambers. The highest is Orun Rere, good heaven, where Olodumare, supreme god, and the Orisha, gods and goddesses, live. Below this is Orun Apadi, the abode of ancestors who have attained a high status. A very interesting aspect of this belief is the concept of Egungun, the dynamic relationship between the living and the dead. Even after the destruction of the world, the ties between families and communities are not severed. The ancestors continue to play an active role in guiding and protecting their descendants who have transformed into new forms of existence. The process of transformation after the destruction of the world is understood through the concept of A's, the vital force that flows through all of reality. Traditional scholars explain that Ace never disappears, only changes form. This is similar to the law of conservation of energy in modern physics, where energy cannot be created or destroyed, it only changes form. Unique to the Yoruba tradition is the view that the destruction of the world is not the total end, but rather part of a larger cycle of transformation. They believe that each soul carries an Ori, personal destiny, that continues to evolve even after physical destruction. This reflects a deep understanding of spiritual continuity that transcends material boundaries. The New Age movement. The New Age movement has a unique perspective on global transformation that combines spirituality, modern science, and various ancient traditions. They see the end of time not as total destruction, but rather as an evolutionary turning point in human consciousness and the planet as a whole. New Age thinkers often refer to the concept of ascension. They explain that the Earth and humanity are moving from the third dimension, 3D, which is material-based, to the fifth dimension, 5D, which is more consciousness and energy-based, and this process is described as similar to the transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly, a total metamorphosis in our way of being and understanding reality. Interestingly, some New Age theorists attribute this transformation to changes in the Earth's electromagnetic field and human DNA. They refer to scientific research on Schumann resonances, the Earth's natural electromagnetic vibrations, that show changes in frequency and link them to the evolutionary potential of collective consciousness. They also talk about the activation of dormant spiritual DNA, or junk DNA. In the New Age vision, the new era after transformation is characterized by the emergence of higher psychic abilities such as telepathy, distance healing, and direct communication with universal consciousness. They believe that future technology will be more consciousness-based than mechanized, creating greater harmony between technological progress and spiritual wisdom. Another important aspect is the concept of unity consciousness. New Age teaches that after transformation, humans will directly experience fundamental oneness with all of life, removing the illusion of separateness that is at the root of conflict and suffering. This is similar to the concept of non-duality in Eastern spiritual traditions, but with an emphasis on practical manifestations in daily life.